Space is a terrible place for the human body. Everything about it is wrong. On Earth, our bodies are perfectly happy. We have gravity pulling us down, which keeps our bones strong and our muscles working. We have a thick atmosphere that protects us from the sun's nasty radiation. We have fresh air, good food, and doctors just around the corner. But in space, all of that is gone. Astronauts are floating in a metal can, millions of miles from the nearest hospital. It's an environment that wants to take a human body apart, piece by piece, just to see what happens. It's a grand and rather rude experiment. The list of things that can go wrong is impressively long. Without gravity, bones start to thin out, sort of like an old person with osteoporosis. Muscles get weak because they don't have to work very hard to move around. Then there is the radiation. Space is flooded with tiny, high-energy particles that zip through the walls of a spacecraft and right through the astronauts themselves. This radiation can damage DNA, which is the instruction manual for our cells. This could lead to cancer or other strange health problems years down the road. It's like being in a low-level microwave for months on end. Your body just isn't built for that kind of abuse. Living in space is also lonely. Astronauts are crammed into small spaces with the same few people for months, sometimes years. They are far from family and friends. This isolation can be tough on the mind. Imagine being stuck in a small office with your co-workers for a year, and you can't even open a window. On top of all that, they are weightless. This sounds fun, like flying, but it confuses the body. Fluids shift up into the head, making astronauts feel stuffy and puffy-faced. Their sense of balance gets all mixed up. It's a full-body assault, a constant, nagging reminder that you are very, very far from home. So, how do you figure out how to protect people from all these dangers without, well, sending a lot of people up there to get sick? You can't just send up a dozen astronauts and see whose liver fails first. That would be unethical, not to mention a public relations nightmare for NASA. You need a way to test the dangers of deep space on human biology without putting an actual human at risk. This is where science gets clever. Instead of sending a whole person, you send up just a tiny piece of them, a stand-in, a biological stunt double that can take all the hits for the real astronaut. Enter the Avatar chip. The name sounds like something from a science fiction movie, but the idea is actually quite simple. Avatar stands for Autonomous Vascular, Adipose, and Lymphatic Tissues for Analysis and Risk. That's a mouthful, so let's just call it an astronaut on a chip. It's a small device, about the size of a smartphone, that holds living human tissues. These aren't just random cells in a petri dish. They are tiny, three-dimensional models of human organs. You can have a tiny liver, a tiny kidney, or a tiny bit of bone marrow, all living and working on a plastic and glass chip. It's like a miniature see-through person. These chips are made from real human cells. For the Avatar project, scientists took tissue samples from dozens of anonymous donors. They then grew these cells into complex structures that mimic how our organs actually work. For example, a liver on a chip can process toxins just like a real liver. A kidney on a chip can filter waste. The chips have tiny channels carved into them, which act like blood vessels. A special fluid, a sort of artificial blood, is pumped through these channels to deliver nutrients and remove waste, keeping the miniature organs alive and functioning for weeks at a time. It's a tiny, portable life support system for a piece of a person. The magic of this technology is that it allows scientists to watch what happens to human tissue in real time. They can expose the chip to something dangerous, like radiation, and see exactly how the cells react. Does the DNA get damaged? Do the cells stop working properly? Do they try to repair themselves? It's like having a window directly into the human body, but without any of the mess or ethical problems. You can do all sorts of terrible things to this little chip that you could never do to a living, breathing astronaut. It's the perfect guinea pig for space exploration. So NASA's plan is to send these chips into space. They will travel alongside the astronauts, experiencing the very same journey. The chips will be exposed to the same weightlessness, the same deep space radiation, and the same confined environment. Back on Earth, an identical set of chips will be kept in a lab under normal conditions. By comparing the spacefaring chips to the Earthbound ones, scientists can pinpoint exactly what space does to our bodies at a cellular level. It's a beautifully controlled experiment, designed to get answers that have been impossible to find until now. The big test for these avatar chips will happen on the Artemis II mission. This is a huge deal. Artemis II will be the first time in over 50 years that astronauts will fly around the moon. It's a practice run for future missions that will land humans back on the lunar surface and eventually send them to Mars. The 4 astronauts on board will be the stars of the show, of course, but tucked away in their Orion capsule will be a small, quiet passenger, a container holding the organ chips. These little biological avatars will make the journey right alongside their human counterparts, venturing farther from Earth than anyone has in a generation. The chips on Artemis II are specifically designed to study the effects of deep space radiation. Once the Orion capsule leaves the protection of Earth's magnetic field, it will be bombarded by galactic cosmic rays. This is the really nasty stuff, the kind of radiation that future Mars explorers will have to deal with. The avatar chips contain tiny models of a kidney, bone marrow, and a blood-brain barrier. These are parts of the body that scientists are particularly worried about. Media group: scientists discussing organ vulnerability in lab, medical researchers analyzing organ models, stock, distribute equally. The kidneys are sensitive to damage, bone marrow is where our blood cells are made, and the blood-brain barrier protects our brain from harmful substances. During the mission, which will last about 10 days, the chips will be doing their job. The tiny organs will be living and breathing, so to speak, inside their automated container. They will soak up all that space radiation, just like the astronauts will. When the Orion capsule splashes down back on Earth, one of the first things scientists will do is recover that container. They will rush the chips to a lab and begin a very detailed examination. They'll look at the cells under powerful microscopes and analyze their genetic material. The goal is to see exactly what kind of damage the radiation caused. This information will be priceless. For the first time, scientists will have data on how human tissues respond to the unique environment of deep space. They can use this knowledge to develop better countermeasures. For instance, if they see a specific type of damage to the kidney cells, they might be able to develop a drug that protects the kidneys. If the bone marrow shows signs of trouble, they could work on better shielding for the spacecraft or new supplements for the astronauts to take. It's all about understanding the enemy, so you can build a better defense for future explorers heading out into the great, dangerous unknown. The amazing thing about this technology is that it's not just for astronauts. The same organ-on-a-chip systems being sent to the moon could one day change medicine for everyone here on Earth. Think about how we test new drugs right now. First, we use cells in a flat dish, and then we test on animals like mice or rats. The problem is, a mouse is not a tiny person. Drugs that work perfectly in a mouse often fail when they are tested in humans. This process is slow, expensive, and often doesn't give us the right answers. It's a bit of a clumsy hit-or-miss system. Now, imagine a better way. Instead of testing a new cancer drug on a mouse, a doctor could test it on a chip that contains a tiny version of your own tumor. They could see if the drug works on your specific cancer without ever giving you a dose. This is the promise of personalized medicine. Doctors could create chips with your own liver cells to see how you would react to a certain medication, helping them find the perfect dose and avoid dangerous side effects. It would make developing and prescribing drugs safer, faster, and much more effective for each individual person. This technology could also help us study all kinds of diseases. Scientists could create chips with lung tissue to study the effects of viruses like the flu or COVID-19. They could build a gut-on-a-chip to understand diseases like Crohn's. By recreating human diseases in a tiny, transparent box, they can watch them develop and test new ways to stop them. It gets rid of the guesswork. It allows researchers to ask very specific questions and get clear answers, speeding up the pace of medical discovery in ways we can only begin to imagine. So, while NASA is using these avatar chips to figure out how to keep astronauts from falling apart on their way to Mars, they are also paving the way for a revolution in healthcare back home. It's a perfect example of how the quest to explore space pushes us to invent things that benefit all of humanity. The next time you look up at the moon, remember that the journey to get there is not just about rockets and astronauts. It's also about tiny, brilliant pieces of science that could one day help you, your family, and people all over the world live longer, healthier lives.